Why do your indoor shots look orange or blue? This is because of probably mainly one setting on your camera. It is called white balance. So white balance can be adjusted in different ways, but essentially it's usually how warm or cold your shot looks. So white balance could be adjusted automatically if you have it set to auto white balance. It could be set to certain presets like daylight or I don't know what all the different settings are, but there might be like incandescent bulb, daylight, cloudy, sunlight, or sunlight and daylight maybe is the same thing, but you know what I mean? There's those different presets. Or you could choose to set it with Kelvin. So there's like, 4500 K, and the K is for Kelvin as far as I understand. So Kelvin is going to be more helpful if you're like manually dialing in the white balance of your video lights. You might use like a Kelvin measurement, and then if you have everything set to 4500 Kelvin, then it'll look like even kind of white looking light as opposed to more orange or blue if everything is dialed into the same Kelvin on the camera and on the lights. But there might be some times where maybe you want certain lights to appear more warm or cold, more orange or blue, right? And so if your shot is looking really orange, it's probably because either your light or your camera is leaning more towards that warmer Kelvin, right? If it's looking more orange, and it's probably leaning more towards that more colder Kelvin, so that more blue, right? That colder look. And Kelvin, this might vary depending on the device that you're using, because I think normally the lower the Kelvin number, the warmer the light, the more orange it looks, and the higher the Kelvin number, the more cold, the more blue it looks. And then if it's at some number in the middle, roughly, it's going to look more white, like more daylight sort of look. But essentially, if you just want it to not look orange or blue, and you want it to look more like just regular, normal kind of white light, then one of the things you could do is try to dial it in based on the Kelvin. But if you're just having like house lights, or whatever, like you don't know what the Kelvin is, they're just a bunch of random lights in your house, then another option that your camera might have is to white balance based on a white card. So essentially it's like that there's this little box that appears on your camera screen, and when you press the shutter button, maybe it varies depending on what your camera is or what your camera settings are, but on my camera here, I think with this camera, you can set it to like a custom white balance, like with a white card or whatever, where it makes this little square in the middle of the screen, and then you would hold a white card. So Marcus Pix uses like a piece of crumpled printer paper, but essentially it's just like it'll base the white balance based off of the color of that thing that's in front of that little box on the screen. So say it's right here, and I hold a white card here, or like a white piece of paper or whatever, and it's like pure white, then it'll white balance to that. So even if things are looking orange, you white balance to that, and then everything will hopefully look like more normal looking, like not too orange, not too blue or whatever, but it'll try to find like the proper white balance based off of that white object you're holding in front of that little box on the screen, if your camera has that setting, right? If your camera has that setting option. So anyway, consider trying to adjust your white balance to get it to look more like how you want it to look. If you want it to look orange or blue, or less orange or blue, you know what I mean? But anyway, I'll leave that there. If you have other questions about cameras, I have a Skool Community, link in description. Feel free to join the Skool Community and ask the questions that you have there. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.